Avengers, assemble. It's that time. We have another data mine to go through. And again, as always, I want to thank Emily for her steadfast help in putting this together. It allows me to get more videos out, and the help is really, really greatly appreciated. And as always, I urge her continuously to start a channel or a Twitter or something public because she could very, very easily host this all on her own. And I do, as always, appreciate the help from the community. It is amazing, everyone who reaches out and who offers to help and who is greatly, greatly wonderful in putting this together. Now, with that out of the way, we are, as the title spoils, looking at War Machine. Discussing this with Emily. So, as any of you know, off period with Avengers. I took a break from it. They announced some stuff. I'm trying to pay attention as best I can, even though they are completely ignoring the PC, and the game is pretty broken. But again, I'm still checking in on it. And what's always interesting to me is data mining and characters. Right? That's really it. That's what interests me the most now. Is just looking into it, seeing what we can uncover, seeing what we can discover. And there's some really, really great stuff in terms of the community being built around this. Like I said, we did our initial data mine in August of 2020, and War Machine was on that list. There was some stuff we found last year, not a whole lot, really not anything to write home about. And so when the topic came up about War Machine for this video, I talked with Emily and kind of got a sense of what's been going on in terms of War Machine. And it has led me to believe, and again, this is how I interpret the information, to each their own. I think War Machine's either been delayed or canceled. I had said this previously, or at the very least intimated it in the Discord. It is something I stand by, though. Data mining is not, spoilers, at least in my opinion. And by that I mean, just because it's data mined, it doesn't mean it's going to come. It doesn't mean it's going to be released. There is no definite it's in the game. This is the stuff that's coming. Like everything we found in August is subject to cancellation. If the game isn't supported, obviously this stuff isn't going to come. But there was Emily had showed me a previous data mine she did last year, and then I compared that with my data mine from August. And then we're looking at the one that we just did over the weekend. And in comparison to other characters, like Black Panther, or even other villains, other characters like Captain Marvel, War Machine has lagged. It seems like he had, or at least, just looking at it, he had some development and then it just stopped. It just pretty much stopped. Again, at least based on the time that was sent to me in terms of Emily's more recent previous data mine versus the one we just did over the weekend. We're looking at since, I guess, December. I mean, and again, there's little room and open, but we couldn't find any changes. I did. I did a once over of my work. I did a once over of hers. We both checked our work repeatedly. It seems like it was halted. I can speculate. I could speculate wildly, I suppose. Why not? It's entirely possible. And again, depending on where you sit on the fence, absolutely anything said about Avengers, depending on where you're at, whether you're an audience who is disappointed in Avengers or you're an audience who is in love with Avengers, you will interpret this information your own way. That's just a fact. I mean, I've pretty much just come to genuinely just accept that, but This is my opinion and my perspective. That's what this is. So, you know, that's it. But I have to again look at this and speculate and wonder if, due to budget constraints, a shrinking team, and again, this is factual. We know it has a shrinking team because we know several members have left and they've not been replaced. That means that is a smaller team. If we look at in terms of, people who had been working on the game are no longer working on the game, people who were working on the game and were let go, or people who are left Crystal Dynamics, or people who are still at Crystal Dynamics and have been moved to another project, tells a story. And again, you can interpret that how you wish. I interpret it as that saying it shrinking budget. I interpret that from a purely business perspective. There's only an objective way, in my opinion, to look at that. A subjective, just as a point of clarity, a subjective point is when you say, "Hey, I like this." That's subjective, right? If you go and say, I love Marvel's Avengers, that is a subjective point of view. That's not an objective fact, right? So, in terms of people leaving, that's not subjective, right? You can't say, "Oh, I think people are leaving." Like you can't make that subjective. It's just a fact that people have left the development team for Marvel's Avengers. Okay, that's the fact. What does that mean in terms of development of these characters that seem to have stagnated? In terms of War Machine, War Machine's an interesting beast because it's one that has been requested. It's one that that YouTube members have again asked me to produce a video on, and again, I'm here and happy to do that. It always feels kind of awkward to do it, and there's nothing. Or at least nothing significant, or in the very least something where I can just look at it and go, in my opinion, I think the lack of development on War Machine, again, interpreting all this information, the lack of development on War Machine leads me to believe that he's either been delayed significantly, resources have been moved to War for Wakanda, which makes a lot of sense, because if they are working with a smaller crew, then they have to put everything they have on War for Wakanda, and of course maintaining the marketplace, and you already know how I feel about that. The marketplace is not content. I'm sorry, it's not. And again, that's an opinion, that's subjective, that's me, and that's fine if you don't feel that way. The marketplace isn't content. I don't care about what the marketplace adds. It doesn't do anything for the content that this game needs, and it doesn't fix the bugs, it doesn't fix the errors, it doesn't fix the crashes, it doesn't fix the load times, it doesn't fix the PC version, the problems with the Xbox version, the problem with the PlayStation version, just based on the comments in our bug report video. It doesn't fix any of that. Okay? I don't give a crap about the marketplace. We need real content dished out to people. Now, obviously, they're flooding the marketplace as much as they can because they have to generate revenue, and you can see them flooding it even more, and all of this feeds into trying to interpret what happened with War Machine. Now, delayed or canceled, obviously, you can't say definitively. I can't say definitively. You know what I mean? Like, we can look at this information, and then we can say it's delayed or it's canceled. That's really the only options. In terms of where the character was at last year, relatively speaking, to the other characters that have at least made some movements versus the 22 heroes we found overall, and we're only seeing movement on a very small amount, again, it just leads me to believe that there's something else going on. It looks like budget constraints. I've seen this kind of development before. It's not good. It's not something that the team's excited for when you're told, this is all you can work on. These are your resources, and then you have to divide that between the marketplace and obviously upcoming War for Wakanda. And clearly, bugs are just falling by the wayside, at least a little bit. I don't know what's happened to QA. So I feel like whenever it comes around for these larger topics, when in terms of YouTube membership request videos, and I try to offer a perspective. I try to at least offer some kind of perspective on, this might be why it looks that way. I delayed or canceled, positive or negative, that's to each their own. But, that's, again, subjective. I can't attest to if it's delayed or if it's canceled. You can look at this information and someone will look at this and they'll say, oh, that obviously means it was canceled. Someone else will look at this and say it obviously means it's delayed. I don't know. Yeah, obviously, the data mines don't reveal things like. I mean, there's no things like that, and because again, the one comment that comes up a lot when I do these videos is, "When's it launching?" So I always try to reiterate, and I'm sure if you follow these videos, it sounds like a broken record a little bit, but I always try to reiterate in these videos, whether it's someone who's jumping in for the first time in one of the, in one of these videos. There aren't dates on it. I want to reiterate that as much as possible. This isn't like a leak. We're not in Crystal Dynamics servers. We're just, it's not like that. We're just in the data of the, we're just in the game. And the game doesn't have little time stamps on it in the code. Like, hey, War Machine launches here, and it doesn't have a little note that says, oh, War Machine's been delayed to this and this date. Like, there's no information like that, and there's barely any movement on a lot of other characters. Which is interesting as well. But again, it might only be interesting to me just because I have a different perspective. When I did the original, data mine and found 22 heroes, I thought we would see more traction across the board on all of them, at least given the team size. But again, that was at a different point, and so but now we're very obviously working with a smaller team. To me, it's at least that's how I interpret the facts of people leaving and not all these positions being replaced. They're not hiring people to replace them. They're just removing people from the team. So you have to look at this in a perspective of all hands on deck for War for Wakanda and then the marketplace. That seems to be it. And honestly, I mean, again, to the question of will we ever see War Machine, I can't answer that. That's going to get a little bit into subjectivity. If the game continues down the path it's on, we're not going to see most of these characters. That's it. We won't see most of these characters if this game continues down this path. That's all there is to it. And again, that's not meant to be a positive or a negative. That's just an observation of if the game does continue down this path of a dwindling player base, because it's just not. The player base, the numbers are not going up. They're just not growing. They're not creating new players at a reasonable rate to replace the players that are leaving. Then yeah, if it continues on this path, it's almost impossible we get every hero that we data mined. And whatever happened to War Machine, I don't currently, right here, right now, expect him anytime soon. Unless something changes in late summer. But again, I can't attest to the future. I can only attest to right now. And he seems dead. I mean, in terms of development, he seems dead. It looks like abandoned. It looks like abandonware. It's the simplest term that I could, appraise it to. To my YouTube members, as always, thank you so much for your support and for making this content possible. If you're interested in becoming a YouTube member, you can check out a link in the description below and support the channel for $2.99 a month with just one tier. To everyone else, thank you so much for watching. Please consider liking, subscribing, and sharing this with your friends across social media. It helps immensely with YouTube's analytics and algorithms. Above all else, and most importantly, stay safe and take care of others. Bye, everyone.